Every so often in the world of sports, there's a player who forever changes the game. People like Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky or Pele. The same could also be said of sports anime and manga, where a new series becomes a smash hit and shakes up the genre forever. Back in the 90s it was Slam Dunk, and in the 2010s Haikyuu took that title. But now, in 2022, there's a new star on the horizon, and that star is called Blue Lock. If you're not into sports anime or just haven't checked out Blue Lock yet, we're here to tell you all about it. Be warned though, there will be some spoilers for Blue Lock's first episode in this video. Oh, by the way, if you followed the channel before and wondering where the usual voice actor is, don't worry, I'm just filling in temporarily. The usual narrator will be back before you know it. Anyway, let's get back to the video. The basic premise to Blue Lock is that Japan's national football team has not been doing too well in the World Cup, which is true to real life as well. Although, as we were making this video, Japan did win 2 unexpected victories against Spain and Germany, but unfortunately fell short against Croatia. In the world of Blue Lock, a shady man named Jinpachi Ego creates a facility in Japan, where the main purpose is to make 300 teenage strikers clash it out, until only one ultimate striker remains standing. The project itself is called Blue Lock, hence the name of the anime. Now, where Blue Lock differs from most sports anime is in its central message and philosophy. In a typical team sports anime, the whole idea is about teamwork and making friends. But Blue Lock is all about individuality and, more importantly, egotism. Jinpachi Ego encourages all the competitors to crush each other's dreams, so only the most ruthless will survive. This unique philosophy is best represented in the contrast between the main character Yoichi Isagi and his teammate Ryosuke Kira. When they're introduced to Blue Lock, Kira is the first one to object to Ego's survival of the fittest philosophy, but Isagi is the very first one to enter Blue Lock, inspiring all the others, including Kira, to follow him. In a typical sports series, Kira might be the perfect main protagonist, thanks to his optimistic attitude and the fact that he's shown to be a better footballer than Isagi at the start. But in the world of Blue Lock, his idealism is his weakness. Kira is the very first person we see eliminated from Blue Lock, and this moment utterly breaks him. Those who are eliminated from Blue Lock are no longer allowed to play professional football for Japan. And to add insult to injury, Kira was eliminated by someone who he considered a friend, Isagi. Kira had gone into Blue Lock in order to prove Jinpachi Ego wrong, but he had all his dreams shattered. Instead, our protagonist is Yoichi Isagi, a young man who has great ambitions. He may just be the perfect candidate for Blue Lock. The moment that Isagi eliminated Kira, he realized something. A part of him liked how it felt to defeat someone else for his own gain. At first glance, Isagi may not seem like much. After all, the first scene of the anime shows him losing a game of football to Kira's team. But that drive to win inside Isagi may just be what propels him to greatness. Of course, even if it's what we're being told, it's not totally clear if we as the audience are supposed to agree with the show's central message about egotism. It's the opposite of what a normal sports anime would say. Not to mention the main guy promoting this. Jinpachi Ego looks and sounds pretty unhinged. But with Kira's voice of dissent gone, there's no one really left to challenge him. So time will tell whether or not Ego's philosophy will be proven right in the end. In addition to sports anime, another genre that Blue Lock takes influence from is the death game genre. If you're not familiar, the death game is a subgenre of horror and thriller, where a group of usually unwilling participants are forced into a game where their own lives are on the line. Some examples of death game anime include Kaiji, Danganronpa, and the recent Tomodachi game. But the most famous examples of the genre are in live action, such as the Saw franchise and the smash hit Netflix show Squid Game. Of course, in Blue Lock, nobody's life is on the line. What is actually at stake is their hopes and dreams. Everyone in there wants to become a pro football player. But if they're eliminated, they're officially blacklisted from ever competing in the Japanese national football team. But even though no one dies, it certainly does borrow the aesthetic of these death games. You have stuff like a facility that the main characters can't leave, identical outfits everyone has to wear, and everyone taking their situation dead seriously. It would be easy to play off a situation like this as a comedy. In the hands of another writer, we could easily see Blue Lock being even more over the top and comedic. After all, on the surface, it sounds like a bit of a ridiculous premise. But Blue Lock shows a surprising amount of restraint, and has the characters treat the situation somewhat realistically. Of course, with all that said, don't expect Blue Lock to be a realistic depiction of football. It still takes a lot of creative liberties. Usually, sports anime either go for one of the two approaches. Either make a fairly realistic sports story like Hajime no Ippo or Ping Pong the Animation, or go for a more fantastical over-the-top sports anime like Basquash or this year's Birdie Wing. Blue Lock falls somewhere in the middle between these two extremes. It sets out to create a sort of heightened reality where football is the most important thing, although it still leans more towards the over-the-top side of things. All the football matches in both the anime and manga are heavily stylized, and treated by the characters with the same seriousness as a fight to the death. And the best example of this is our protagonist Isagi. Like we've mentioned before, he is the ultimate embodiment of what Blue Lock represents. Raw, unrestrained ego and ambition. It may not look like it at first, but from the very beginning the seeds of his ego had been planted. In the first episode, we see Isagi's football team losing a game against Kira's team. Isagi's coach tries to cheer the team up about their loss and tells them that to him, he still thinks they gave it their all. Isagi on the other hand has a much more cynical view of things. Right before his team lost, Isagi had passed the ball to one of his teammates who then failed to make a goal. As he walks home that day, Isagi can't help but imagine an alternate scenario where he had taken the glory for himself and scored a goal. It just goes to show that from the start he already had the makings of a Blue Lock player. Of course, despite the focus on egotism, Isagi isn't the only important character in Blue Lock. It has a large cast of players, from Isagi's teammates to his rivals to the facility staff. Thanks to the over-the-top nature of the show, all these characters have large personalities with character designs to match. The designs of each character perfectly reflect their personality. The most obvious example would probably be in the Wanima twins. The more talkative and upbeat younger brother Keisuke has a round-shaped face, as well as a perpetual smile, while his older and more serious brother Joichi has a face and hair more sharp and angular. And of course he's always frowning. No two characters look the same and each of them has a design that perfectly reflects their personality. Overall, Blue Lock already has the makings of being the next major sports anime. The manga has already been going strong for almost 200 chapters, but the anime may just push it to the next level. It's got everything an iconic series needs: memorable characters, high stakes, and most importantly, originality. Its central themes of egotism is what sets it apart from its many more idealistic counterparts. And who knows, maybe this show could inspire a new generation of football players. We know that might sound absurd at first, but it's not totally ridiculous. Sports anime does have a history of influencing real life. For example, back in the 80s, one of the biggest sports series around was Captain Tsubasa. It's said by some that the popularity of Captain Tsubasa caused a massive surge in football's popularity in Japan. And several players in Japan and abroad have named the series as what got them into the sport in the first place. Or the case of Slam Dunk, which greatly helped popularize basketball in Japan, as well as being a major hit in Korea and the Philippines. To the point where in 2010, the Japanese Basketball Associate actually commended Slam Dunk's author for boosting basketball's popularity. So if Blue Lock gets big enough, it might just cause a resurgence in Japan's interest in football. But whatever the case, Blue Lock is absolutely carving its path to be an iconic anime.